sports stars in America have brought major U.S. leagues to a halt by refusing to play in protests against the police shooting of Jacob Blake in Wisconsin.
Breaking news: the Milwaukee Bucks have announced that they are boycotting their playoff game in the NBA.
Game over. The Phillies have postponed tonight's game in Washington.
UofT is a colonial institution built in 1856 on indigenous land for white Christian men to be educated. The systems and policies developed over time have been primarily to uphold this and safeguard the education of white individuals. Although equity initiatives and programs take place every year, work still needs to be done in order to break down the oppressive systems that still exist today. Work still needs to be done to make UofT inclusive for BIPOC students and athletes.
Racism in any form is harmful and has a major impact on the lives of individuals and communities. Often though, it's the more subtle, everyday, less dramatic forms of racism that are not addressed or even spoken out against. These experiences are traumatic and over time can have a devastating effect on a person's life.
A coach singled out an athlete during a team breakfast, saying that they eat like an immigrant. And on another occasion, the same athlete experienced another racist comment by the same coach and got upset to the extent where they had to up and leave the meeting.
At a youth sports banquet, a black athlete in their rookie year was told to get out of the group photo because they would make it look dark.
An athlete that was also a top donor was prioritized over other athletes who had better performances.
Athletes have said that there are many coaches who do not look like us or understand where we're coming from.
A team was playing loud rap music, and the coach walked in and blamed the only two black athletes for the loud rap music.
White teammates were touching my hair and saying this would be great for a Halloween costume. You're lucky. You don't have to buy a wig. You can just color it.
Two black athletes went to talk to the coach about the discrimination and neglect they were facing on the team, and the coach said they needed to get thicker skin.
A coach continuously asked a black athlete about their grades, assuming they were low, and was shocked and surprised to hear that they were doing great because they thought that they couldn't handle university.
Many black athletes have been told by white athletes that they act more white than black, or just aren't black enough.
A black athlete had a very tough time entering a new environment with no one to talk or relate to. This was also hard because they lived an hour away from campus and had to commute. Many of the team room conversations were very privileged, so they kept their unrelated stress to themselves, including having to work a part-time job in order to afford post-practice meals.
Get active and support each other. What hurts one of us hurts all of us.
Educate yourself and listen to racialized people's experiences.
Intervene and hold people accountable for racism immediately.
Build relationships with communities that you are not a part of.
Speak up and advocate for people while they're in the room and not in the room.
Demand equity and human rights for yourself, your community, and for others.
If you make mistakes, that's okay. Just do better and then provide the space for others to do the same.
Tell your story and support others to do the same.
Allow yourself to feel the emotions that racism brings up, and let this motivate you to do better.
Lead by example. Help create an environment free from racism.
Whenever possible, stand alongside people on the front lines. Show up and roll up your sleeves.
Don't sit back and be non-racist. Non-racist is what people feel is enough, and it's not.
Or 18th. Don's away, so I've got Buffalo Blue Jays superfan Erik here with me once again. Like the collector's item back there, Erik. Not sure what your Jays are doing, if they got any pitching. We've got Allison in the back producing the show. We've got Dwayne and Maz as special guests. So welcome to today. Somebody shared that video with me the other day. There's a lot going on in sport, society, and business around social injustice. And as you can see, a series of students at the University of Toronto banded together and created their association. And, I'm chairing a commission right now for the Ontario University Athletics around Black, biracial, Indigenous issues. And when it comes to these issues, a lot of conversations out there that the protests, the acts of unity, the stances that the players are taking is potentially driving away fans. The narrative that comes is by kneeling, by talking Black Lives Matter, by talking It Takes All of Us, by unifying, is driving away fans. And I think those pundits, who by and large tend to be Republicans and racists, have it backwards. What I'm seeing in my community, in my cohorts, is that the NFL is driving away fans because they aren't going far enough yet. And the fans they're driving away are people who look more like me than some of the critics. That I personally feel conflicted supporting, spending money, watching a league that has yet to reinstate Colin Kaepernick in one way or another, allows their fans to boo Super Bowl champions, that the brands and the commissioner are not coming out. And so, it's easy narrative for people to say, well, people don't want to watch athletes be involved with politics. First of all, it's not politics. It's human rights. And secondly, the drop-off on engagement is actually coming from the marginalized group, which in fact is a double whammy. So I thought that video was a good way for us to start.
It's very powerful, especially hitting home, being in Toronto, from Toronto, and seeing it firsthand in our community.
And I can tell you the commentary about the young woman talking about the Halloween costumes. I've heard a story of that went further, that players on that team asked, some of the white players on that team asked the Black players if they could borrow their clothing for Halloween to go out as gangsters. And the coach was in that setting. So imagine you're the parent of a young athlete. And a coach comes and says, I'm going to take care of your daughter for the next 4 or 5 years. She will be safe. We'll make sure that she gets great training, great academics. You've handed your child over to that coach. Let's flip over on to the league that, universally everybody kind of agrees gets it right, is the NBA. And let's go to maybe some on-court conversation. Love your thoughts on some big upsets in the NBA. I mean, I was praying for a narrative of us winning another title and Kawhi being on the sideline. Unfortunately, we're on the sideline, but so is Kawhi. But what are your thoughts, Eric?
Well, I think definitely I take it back. I think the Bucks win is definitely the biggest upset. They have not been the same. Yeah, the Bucks lost. Sorry about that. They haven't been the same since March. Something happened in that time. I don't know if it's a team cohesion, whether it was the pressure of winning. Like everyone keeps saying, the Bucks, this was your 1 year to win it, and you're going to lose Giannis. But that was the bigger upset for me. Kawhi and the Clippers was the second biggest upset, but it was probably the most shocking based on the performance within the bubble. Like there's nothing wrong with the Clippers going into it. I don't know what happened. There must have been something inside that team that they stopped because Kawhi did not do well in that last game.
So, they were up 3-1.
Yeah.
They had 2 games. They blew monstrous leads. And what was Kawhi like? You know who he was in the fourth quarter in Game 7? Wait for it. He was DeMarcus. Sorry. He was
DeMar DeRozan?
DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah.
Remember when we were playing Cleveland a few years ago, fourth quarter, 2-point game. I think it was an elimination game, and DeMar, our all-star, was on the bench.
I think that series was the lowest point as a Raptors fan. But yeah, comparing to that, Kawhi had 19 points, I think, in Game 7. That is nothing like what we saw last year from him. So something must have happened within the team. It just shows how special last year was. I think it sort of justifies that a little bit. It's not automatic that you have Kawhi, that you're going to go to the finals. So I think it looks good for us last year. But yeah, we were so close to finishing at least ahead of Kawhi.
Yeah, which would have been nice. So you've got what's your pick now? I mean, maybe a little easy to pick Miami, but Miami, Boston, Lakers, Denver.
I dislike everything Boston in sports. Great town, select their teams. So I'm cheering for Miami, but Denver's my team. They have to be. I mean, they have Jamal Murray, Kitchener.
Yeah, absolutely.
Proud. That's the easy pick, I think, for any Toronto Raptors fan, especially looking on Twitter. But I think what all these upsets are telling you is just how that home court advantage has been taken away completely. Boston hasn't won a home game in 2 months. It seems
Really?
like. They haven't won a home game in the playoffs yet, but what's home, what's away? So there's that two arguments that, this equals the playing field and actually says who the best team is. But then at the same time, there's the other argument about teams fought 5 months to get their advantage. So I heard somebody say maybe give them a 1-0 lead at the beginning of the series to start it off. I don't know. But yeah, that's one thing.
Go ahead.
I think that's one thing, a takeaway that we take from the bubble, that home court that's so important all year has just been completely taken away.
Absolutely. And it's interesting. I've seen some stats out of the Bundesliga and other European leagues where the home teams are still winning, but certainly the penalties called against the visiting teams is way down, because there's a direct correlation between fan intimidation in European football and the referees and the officials. And I would say this about, as I'm a massive football fan. Outside of, loud stadiums making it hard for the offensive line to hear, I think the basketball, the crowd has the biggest impact on the outcome of the game.
Because they're so close.
Right. So close, so audible. Basketball is such a game of swings and momentum.
Yeah. We've all seen what, sorry.
Go ahead.
We've all seen what Drake can do right up in the face of everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's switch events for a second. Call in our guest, Dwayne. Dwayne from Define Designs. We talked, we had a Sponsored Bets webinar a couple weeks ago. We talked about TIFF 2020, moving to kind of this very interesting hybrid omni-channel model of events, more digital, drive-ins, you name it. But Erik, you've been involved in TIFF for a long time, as is Dwayne. Hey, Dwayne, how are you?
Good to see you.
I'm not sure my pink is matching your green, but I can change if you want. But maybe you guys can talk a little bit about, kind of some real life feet on the street, actual activations from TIFF 2020, and give us some insights.
For sure. I've known Dwayne since 2015, and whenever you get these requests for him, he always performs and gives more than we ever need. This past week, you and Define Designs were celebrated on a Visa Instagram post highlighting small businesses that are behind helping TIFF activations such as Visa. Give us an example of what you saw at TIFF this year and what you did with Visa.
And how is it different than my past years?
Well, everything's different from past years, but TIFF specifically is always a great event in Toronto. And over the years, we've had multiple clients there, bills that we've done that typically go across the country and make sure they have a stop in TIFF. Also working with TIFF directly some of the years. This one being different, where I was surprised it actually was still going on. So to get the phone call when everything was approved, we literally had 10 days to kind of come up with the design, build, and execute this 30-foot tall billboard. So it was a different, we're used to having very tight timelines. This one, that much more so of scrambling together. Every business, ourselves included, are running a little thin on staff and not operating as efficiently as we used to, where, you've had to lay off some of the project managers. So it makes it a little bit tougher to get things done. But this was a great project to take on. Was stoked to get the call from a really good client of ours, Chantal at Reserve Decks and BMF, to be asked to help with this, to be on site, to see the other teams putting it all together, and then to be highlighted on Visa's Instagram. It's, we work a lot behind the scenes, and which we're happy to do so. We work with a lot of great people. So to be recognized and have a photographer come to our shop, meet the staff, take a photo of everybody, and have that posted was great to kind of get that recognition, even though it's not needed. It's appreciated.
For sure. And you work hard this time of year on events such as TIFF. Tell us about, I know you just mentioned a little bit about just how businesses and how it's been since COVID has taken a hold. What are some of the actions that you've taken as a company to sort of get by during these times?
Yeah, it's tough. Our busy season is typically the spring, early summer, where, we do specialize mainly in mobile and build a lot of tours. And in North America, everybody is outside, and the summer is the busy season for experiential marketing. So, everything just took a complete stop, to be quite honest. There's no way of sugarcoating it. It just stopped. I'll try not to swear on your podcast.
Swear away. This is a swearing podcast.
Oh, perfect. So we were lucky that we had some large jobs that continued the build process throughout the spring. The unfortunate side, as we all hoped and wished that by June, then maybe July and August, there'd be things would get better and we get somewhat of a season, but now everything's parked in the back. A couple of clients, were able to put together a couple of events or builds, but it's changed, and I think now that we're going on 6 or 7 months, I think a lot of the hope and enthusiasm is gone, and I can hear that when I get client requests. Is they realize the odds of the project going through are very, very slim. We're speaking earlier about sports and all of that, and we were working on with a client for a build that was related to the Raptors. So one, they're trying to factor in their investment on if the Raptors are going to go forward through the playoffs, how long they will, and then all the players walked off. So then the brands were like, well, I'm not going to get my investment back, and they just pulled right out. So there's all these kind of different factors, but like I said, you kind of feel a lot of the wind's been out of the sails, back in March, but there was hope and there was a possibility. Now I'm really finding that a lot of that is kind of gone, and people are planning for 2021, but I think the harsh reality is, people are feeling a little bit defeated.
And sorry, Eric, you were going to say something. I was trying to cut you off, but Dwayne and many people who watch us are in the small business sector. So, not to get uber personal, but think about yourself as an entrepreneur. What gets you out of bed every day right now? It's September 18th. I think we've all experienced these highs and lows, but if you were to give people like the 3 things you'd say, how to get out of bed and keep fighting the good fight?
It's, on a personal level, like, I don't have a family. So as cliche and as cheesy as it is, like the team here really is my family. So I come here for them. As yourself, there's joy being an employer, and to have a team and watch the individuals and people grow, not only within your business, but as individuals and people, and being able to provide them with a reliable, source of income. So there's, some of that's been stripped away. We had to lay people off as others were. So, but there's the drive to just continue the business, just mainly for them, I would say we are the number one and then from there, it's, I love what I do. We're on the shirt today, but we build cool shit, and that's it, So just the possibility, the knowledge that it will get back. I love speaking with clients. I love working with clients.
Right.
One's a great client of ours. Also, as Eric, as you mentioned, it's been years we've been working together on some wicked stuff. So that's the driving factors. You get that one phone call and you're having the crappiest day, and you get like, can you build this? It's like, oh my God, yeah, this would be awesome. So there's that energy, and we've actually had that, this year, despite everything else we've done. TIFF, again, perfect example of that, to just scramble, bring the team together, and have it all come together literally in 10 days, and it looks spectacular, and to get recognition. We did another trailer for you guys that's I guess launching today, so that was a really fun build. So there's still all these little nuggets that are few and far between this year, but they do come along. So it's being hopeful and knowing that it's going to come along. So those are still there. And I guess third is just, you don't have a choice. You got to push through, and it comes down to us as entrepreneurs, but also just as people, as society, we have to be positive. We have to look past the other side. It sucks. Get over it. Go, like, now what? So I think, I've accepted it. It is what it is. There's nothing, me being upset, me being happy, me being throwing something across the room is not going to solve that problem. So, be positive and try to look at, a lot of people talk about pivot. I don't personally like that word. It's just a matter of adapting. Like the landscape has changed, industry's changed, the world has changed. So how do you adapt and not necessarily find new meaning, but just, just find another opportunity for income, to be blunt.
All right. Thank you, Dwayne, for coming on today. This is a great treat for us to have you as a guest.
Great to be on.
It's always insightful, and you're not lying. We throw everything at you. There's ideas that we give you, and we think there's no way they're going to do it, and you just take it right on every time. And we thank you for that.
I appreciate the opportunities. It's always been it's been a great bunch of years. Hopefully, there's great more coming.
Love it. Love the nuggets. To Dwayne's point, everyone should look for the nuggets. So as we move on, the next thing that Erik, I want to talk a little bit about is, COVID-19. Here's the thing, and Dwayne touched on this as a small business person. In Ontario and other provinces, we're looking at potentially retracting, right? We've got new mandate around the number of people that can get together indoors, new mandate outdoor gatherings. I'm going to throw this at you. I think we've got to find a way to punish the violators.
I totally agree. I mean, yeah, I totally agree, because you got to make the point at a certain point that they will be punished. Because I think the longer that you go on not punishing anyone, like even myself, not that I'm doing anything crazy, in my head, I was so strict to other people early on, like 2 months ago. And then it lightens up a little bit, and you sort of extend your ability to go out, and whether it's, forgetting to do a certain thing. And even myself, I sort of let things go a little bit because I have no idea of what it's like to be punished. There are people out there who just don't care about the rules. Mm-hmm. And sometimes there are people in your life that you thought you respected, and then you have to question it. And you're not as in sync with them as you thought they were. But I think that's just an example that maybe they haven't been, so it hasn't become real to them what's actually going on. And punishing and having legit examples of punishing is very important, I think, to get that across.
Yeah, so, I'm going to wrap this segment up by saying I've got some suggestions for anybody who's listening and watching. How do we talk to our government officials? Now, I'm not suggesting we go as far as Indonesia, where now the punishment for not wearing a mask in Indonesia is you have to dig graves with a shovel for COVID victims. So that's probably not where us as Canadians will get to, but we should think this through. I think we need our governments to get onto the simplicity. I love my Starbucks, I love my coffee shops, but if you're sitting in a coffee shop, why should you be allowed to have your mask off? I think we've got to go to mask on. I would be fine with mask on, leave the house, whether you're jogging, biking, walking. You get to a corner. I think we've got to get rigid. Mask, hand washing, social distancing will stop this thing in its tracks as we wait for a vaccine. Secondly, we need our governments to tell us as entrepreneurs and business people what the future holds. So what I mean by that is, how long will the queues run? How long will the curb run? Tell me what's being done in hospitals, senior homes, medical centers to be ready. I want to know we've got stockpiles of PPE for first-line responders. I want to know we've got ventilators and these new aerators that doctors are now using, because they've actually realized that putting people on ventilators sometimes is actually problematic. So we need a plan. And we need to understand what the medical side is and what the business side is. And then lastly, we've got to allow restaurants and bars, when winter comes, are we closing roads, putting up heated tents? What's going to happen? I'll give you a quick example where you're going to see a turnaround in policy. That's the United States recently with college football. 3 of the Power 5 conferences started the season. The Pac-10 and Big 12 decided not to. They weren't comfortable with the testing and protocols, the ability for them to manage disease among players, athletes, and coaches. The Big Ten, as you know, has reversed course this week. No Trump. It's not because you made one frickin' phone call. But I think there's some lessons here, which is they planned it out, they pivoted, and I think the moral of the story is it is not too late for the Canadian Football League. Okay, it's not too late. So somebody get your act together and figure it out for the CFL.
For this year or moving forward?
This year, in my opinion, It's not too late, right? You can have 3 weeks of training camp. I mean, it's too bad they didn't start a couple weeks ago. It would have been genius to have started on Thanksgiving weekend, because, the highlights of the CFL season are start in July, Labor Day weekend's the rivalry games, Thanksgiving weekend's always big, and then Grey Cup. Yep. It's not too late. You can do a condensed season, do 2 bubbles or 3, get the teams together. College football is figuring out a way to come back. It's not too late. Hey, let's talk about a different type of sports. Let's bring in your friend Maz. Maz, hey Maz, you are now combined with Ninja, so I'm now looking at you with such love your hat, buddy. Over to you, Erik. Maz, how are you today?
For sure. Welcome, Maz.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
For sure. Maz was on a couple weeks ago. Great to have you back. We're going to talk about Ninja's return to Twitch. Big news in the world of esports, and some are equating the lead up to this decision by Ninja with LeBron's decision to take his talents to South Beach. So what does this decision for him to go to Twitch, how does this make for the standing of Twitch in the landscape? Like, what does it make for Twitch?
I think what it does is it cements Twitch as the place to be. It makes it the premier destination for any streamer. And what it does also is for the other streaming platforms such as YouTube, Facebook gaming, it basically gives them the view that, yeah, you aren't ever going to reach Twitch's platform or Twitch's level. It basically states that now because Ninja apparently, according to reports, had a very, very big bag offer from Facebook and refused it.
How big?
Hey.
Apparently very big. Bigger than Mixer. Within Mixer, he made $30 million. So bigger, yeah. So he refused it. So it shows that there's something to Twitch when it comes down to it's the way it works with its creators and how it can actually engage with its audience that no other platform has done yet. Some people say YouTube is sort of close to it, but again, Dr. Disrespect to the YouTube. I'm a huge Dr. Disrespect viewer, and I can tell you that it's not close to what Twitch offers. And that is the biggest difference, I think, is that Twitch is something that is holding a monopoly over this industry, and it seems like it's going to be the case for a very long time.
How much of a hit did Twitch take when Ninja left last year? Did it affect it at all?
Surprisingly, not much of a hit, to be honest with you, because what Twitch is really good at is that they know how to promote their creators. So like one creator goes away, they'll promote another creator, and they're really good at this. And this is something that differentiates them from other platforms. Is that, like, for example, Mixer was relying on Shroud and Ninja, and when they basically they weren't happy, everyone knew sort of they weren't happy, and people weren't coming to really watch them as much as they thought. Mixer couldn't work, right? Whereas with Twitch, it's like, okay, Ninja left, Shroud left, they banned Dr. Disrespect. Those are three of the biggest streamers. It wasn't like they banned Dr. Disrespect without even a worry, and it's for them. It doesn't really matter who's on their platform. It's more for them is that they have the capabilities and the ability and the knowledge over countless years now on how to promote different creators and different talents to really get their viewership up still.
Well, it's a really big story, and I know that Ninja sort of teased a little bit in July when he did some streaming on YouTube, but clearly that wasn't enough to make his decision. I want to thank you for coming on this time, letting us know about the ins and outs of Ninja's return to Twitch, and we'll see you again another time, Maz.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Maz, it's good seeing you, although I got to tell you, you killed me because now I can't yell at my son to get out of the basement. Stop. $30 million. He can stick in the basement, play all the video games he wants. We'll see you next week on Bourbon Street. Erik, thanks for jumping in and doing your best Don Mayo impression. Allison, thanks for holding down the fort behind the scenes. Everybody have a good weekend. Be safe.
Bye, guys.